a means to an end.
Hey guys, my name is Shroomy. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. I wanted to take a bit of time today to talk about yearly story arcs. For those who don't know, yearly story arcs are the ongoing narrative thing that's going to be happening every year. This was confirmed back at the Spotlight with some promotional images, but also Aaron Keller said it himself. So we should be seeing more future story arcs that handle the entire year like Reign of Talon. Now, Reign of Talon I have a lot of thoughts on, but I'm going to be saving all of those thoughts for a full recap video at the end of the year, going over everything that happened and kind of talking about my thoughts on it. So keep an eye out for that, probably towards, well, the next Spotlight, I think. What about these arcs coming up? And what do these yearly story arcs mean for the ongoing narrative? Well, there's been a couple small things said here and there, so I think there's enough stuff to talk about. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of stuff. This is more so going to be me yapping more than usual, I should say, with a little bit more of a kind of relaxed vibe, just kind of talking. So, yeah. Let's get into it by starting with the story arcs. So, Reign of Talon is about halfway through at the time of me recording this. We're probably going to be seeing a big jump at BlizzCon. In fact, it was confirmed by Aaron Keller in a recent interview that we should expect something at BlizzCon in terms of the narrative, so keep an eye out for that. However, I do think it's interesting that this year is going to be leading into next year, and next year is probably going to be taking a lot of lessons learned from this year's story arc, and, well, kind of evolving on it. Another thing said by Aaron Keller that I haven't really seen mentioned anywhere in this article by The Gamer is specifically that they are doing these older factions throughout the year because that's what players are interested in. So it does seem like it's a pretty conscious thing, aside from, well, the new hero being attached to those factions, to focus on these older groups. With that in mind, I do think we're going to see a similar layout to how things went this year, next year. What I mean by that is, we're probably going to be seeing more older factions and old theories, old questions be getting answered, which I think is pretty cool. Now, we can talk about the quality and if we enjoyed getting these answers to a lot of these older things in another video, but judging by that, what factions do I think could be involved next year? Well, it kind of goes down to where the narrative is going to be going, and I can really only see 3 directions for where we're going next year. First off, I've been saying this ever since Emery came out, but the conspiracy has to be a focus. I think the conspiracy being the next big thing is just making a lot of sense more and more. The conspiracy has been controlling Talon for a little while now, at least we can assume so with Emery being involved here. They seem to force him to be involved in certain groups and do certain things that they want, judging by the eye. If you don't know what the conspiracy is, I've made multiple videos on it already, but basically, it's the group that's controlling Emery and kind of this ongoing shadowy organization that kind of controls the world. Next year, I think there's a really good chance we're going to be seeing the conspiracy start to unfold, and fully unravel whatever's going on with them. This, I think, is going to introduce us to some pretty important characters, but also keep pre-existing characters involved. Characters like Iari are probably going to be a very important part of this. Characters like Hazard and the Freaks, who haven't really been mentioned much in the narrative, could be getting involved here. And of course, Oasis, Moira, and the Ministers could also be important. However, with all that as well, Soldier 76, aka Jack Morrison, is on their trail. So we could probably see a story revolving around him, and maybe he has to interact with Overwatch to kind of achieve his goal. Maybe they have to work together to find out more about the conspiracy. I can see the year being called the Year of Conspiracy arc, or the Conspiracy Rise, kind of like the Rise of Talon. Maybe Talon starts to take a back seat as a global power, and Overwatch starts to really peel back the curtain on who really controls the world. Maybe Vendetta falls, or maybe Talon starts to crumble at the end of this year. I kind of doubt that, and I more so think we're going to have to go after whoever's in charge of Talon and pulling the strings behind the scenes, aka the conspiracy. That could be a pretty interesting way to go, and of course, Emery would be a pretty prominent character in that. His story feels like it just started, obviously, so makes sense that they're going to evolve that over time. Freya as well, I think, is going to be an integral part to his story, and we'll probably see where that goes maybe next year if we get a conspiracy arc. If we continue to get like 5 or 6 heroes a year, I could see characters from these older factions getting represented again. Characters like Susie from the Freaks or Boomslang, maybe someone from Peru, and maybe an old Inti warrior, though I kind of doubt that since Yari's the last. We could see another one of the ministers of Oasis. All of those things are things people have wanted to see, and because Aaron Keller said they're going to be doubling down on older once from players, well, I think it's pretty clear where that's going to be going. Now, if we don't go in the direction of the conspiracy, where else could we go? Well, you guys probably know this one, but my second idea is the Year of Null Sector, or the Return of Null Sector. Now, this one I think is a lot less likely, mainly because we just moved away from the Null Sector plotline, and I doubt they would go back to it. However, Ramatra is so integral to that story, I can't see them staying away for too long. He's such a prominent and fan-favorite character, not having him involved feels like a crime. So, maybe whatever happens at the end of this year is going to lead into Ramatra having to come out of hiding. Or maybe Phase 2 of Ramatra's plan begins. I could see that being something that happens as well. But how would the story and things like that evolve over the year? Well, you could very well use the Freaks in that storyline, you could use characters from older Null Sector adjacent factions, kind of like everything that happened in London and the London Calling comics with Iggy, Tracer, Case, those characters. You could even do stuff with Doomfist, and make Doomfist come out of hiding and ally with Ramatra. Now, this is all very hypothetical and very unplausible at the moment, but Null Sector being something that comes back into the picture at some point, I just had to mention it. There's also a ton of characters from Ramatra's past that I think would make amazing heroes. Characters like Nameless and Zira, who are two of the founders of Null Sector from back in the day. Other characters who exist inside Null Sector who would just generally be pretty cool to have in-game as heroes. As well, you could have factions that are fighting against Null Sector across the globe. Null Sector as a faction has just been almost completely unexplored, and that is something that I think we could be seeing down the road. More of a focus on them, but more specifically, getting Ramatra involved in things again, because, man, I know I miss that guy. And of course, with a Year of Null Sector, we can get more on Zenyatta, who unfortunately has been kinda left behind. He was set up to do a lot of stuff with PvE and the ongoing narrative there, and ever since this yearly story arc trend has gone on, and even before that, he's kind of been left in the gutter. I hope we get to see Zenyatta if we get a Year of Null Sector, but maybe we could see him get involved in the conspiracy plotline as well. Either of those work really well together. Something else I should note with a Year of Conspiracy plotline as well is you can do stuff with Vishkar. Now, this part of it is kind of a hypothetical, but based on the Paraiso rework, it does seem like they're kind of move that story along a little bit, or kind of pushing it in a direction. Maybe we see Symmetra, Lifeweaver, Lucio, and, of course, Domina get involved in some storyline that way. That would be pretty fun to see and get a Vishkar season. Maybe with a new Vishkar hero, maybe with a character from the Arcology, hint hint, but yeah. Now, my third idea for where all this is going is a bit crazy, but hear me out. Maybe, instead of the rise of Talon, we're going to see the war of Talon, or something along those lines. Doomfist is slowly building up his power, we know he's back in the picture, maybe we get an entire year story arc with him as the big bad, trying to defeat Vendetta. We could see him recruiting allies on his own and formulating his own plans, while in the background, Overwatch is trying to stop Vendetta, but also maybe has to work with Doomfist. Now, not exactly sure if they would work with Doomfist after everything, but it could be Vendetta's power becomes so great, they kinda need to put everything to the side. This could also get Ramatra involved, and we could see a lot of story stuff with him in the future, maybe in that year, but the ideas for this one are pretty open-ended and basically endless. Of course, you have to also point out with this entire year's heroes, all of this and, well, everything for the years going on are going to be important. Now, we're going to be getting, I think, at least 5 heroes every year, and if we don't, and we go back to 3, those 3 heroes are still probably going to be important to the yearly story arcs, so we're going to have to keep an eye on where these narratives go. For example, if we get a Null Sector year, maybe we get 2 Omnics in those 6, or if we get a Talon year, maybe we get some more Talon reps. Or alternatively, we could go into my surprise 4th option, an Overwatch year, to kind of mirror, well, everything with Talon. Now, a year of Overwatch, where it's mostly the Overwatch organization getting back on its feet, kind of getting back into a position of power, is something the faction kind of desperately needs. In Overwatch Undivided, it's kind of clear that the faction is really understaffed and can't handle all of this across the world, so getting more characters involved is probably going to be very helpful. Maybe we get a year focusing on everything going on with Overwatch and getting them moving as a faction again. Whatever Vendetta's planning to do with this EMP that was set up this season in Season 4, it's going to be big, and it's going to shake the Overwatch world. So, Overwatch as an organization is going to need to come back. This is probably going to put the world in a state of chaos that we haven't seen since the Null Sector invasion, if I had to guess, so Overwatch getting a year to really fight back and be the main characters again would be pretty great. That's one of the biggest critiques I've seen with the Reign of Talon, is Overwatch hasn't really been the main characters, and you're playing the game to really hone in on these guys, so why don't we get to see more of them? Overwatch Undivided has been doing this, but I think people want more of a narrative and in-game focus on them as well. So, a year of Overwatch would make a lot of sense. That is something I think I would like, but not necessarily something that I think will happen. But once again, it's something I wanted to bring up here. Some of the heroes that came out this year are probably teasing storylines that are going to be coming down the road. Emery, of course, with the conspiracy, Jetpack Cat with Liu Chang and Project Star Pets, assumedly, Domina with maybe the founder's death and what happened with the Vishkar company, and of course, we got to see Mizuki's storyline already kind of unfold here last season with Shion, and we got to see Onron's already unfold in the first season of this year. So, it does seem like I'm going to be betting on Jetpack Cat and Emery being the most important too. Jetpack Cat and Liu Chang could hypothetically fit into any of these, by the way, but I do think that's something we could see in the future as well. Maybe get another Space Ape? There's a couple candidates there that I would love to see as heroes. Those are my thoughts on where the story could be going and some of my ideas I've had festering around that I think things could be going in that direction. Those are my thoughts on everything so far with the yearly story arcs, because the potential is really limitless. I wanted to highlight that article, and I'll be linking it down below as well as another article that kind of talks about, a couple things with heroes. So if you're interested, go ahead and read both of those. BlizzCon is coming up, and I'm going to be covering as much as I can while also being there. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to like and subscribe. A lot of lore is coming our way very soon, and I can't wait to talk about all that and more, as well as just talking about lore generally with you guys. Anyways, that's all from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
你好。